sprinters, do you know the shadow? Maybe not this shadow, but it's Janae here to lighten and brighten and ignite your day to introduce you to the shadow that we are going to be talking about. It's week 2. We are on the power of integration and day number 13 already for shadows. Now, this is an old-time radio show called The Shadow. Started and debuted about in the 1930s and became very popular. In fact, for some reason, my family, I think it was my father and my brother, got into these old-time radio shows. So growing up, we actually would drive in the car and we would listen to the cassette tapes of these old-time radio shows. And one of the favorites was The Shadow. And in fact, right when I started thinking about this topic, this was one of the first things I talked about was The Shadow. Remember the one that was all about, you know, who knows what evil looks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. And I remembered that so specifically. And that could be a big reason why the shadow has been a shadow of mine. You know, there's a phrase that we're scared of our own shadows, and the shadows are those things oftentimes that we want to avoid because it's the things that maybe don't make us look as good as we think we really are. So Derek Rydell, I talked about him already in the class I was taking. He does a lot of shadow work and encouraging to do this. And I want to share the definition that he uses to describe our shadows. He goes, any judgment and anything that pulls or pushes our button indicates that there's either a light or a dark shadow. Dark shadows are all the negative judgments we have about ourselves or others, such as, I am stupid, a failure, unworthy, loser, confident. The light shadows are the ones we are not. For example, I'm not worthy. I'm not talented enough. And he says, integrating our shadows enables us to turn them from destructive patterns to constructive qualities in our lives. So how do we do that? I mean, how do we integrate these shadows? And again, I'm really clear, a shadow of mine has been to avoid anything that is negative, conflict, shadowy kinds of things, any kinds of weaknesses, because the power of positive thinking, optimism, gratitude. I mean, I can't tell you how many of these fields that I have studied, law of attraction, that says, you know, what you focus on expands. So if I sit and focus on all the shadows or all my weaknesses, I don't want those to expand. So instead, I would stuff them up and try to hide them and not integrate them. And so it's been really good and important for me to release the shadows within and figure out what I can do to understand them and reflect on them. So what I wanted to share with you was a shadow reflection to help both of us really kind of think about this concept more. So I have the word shadow as an acronym, and we'll just go through all the letters and I'll take it more. So specifically share, for the first, S for share, H for hurt, A for ally, D for don't do, O for opportunities, and W for way forward. So I'm going to go through each of these more specifically and we'll talk about them. The first one, share. So why is it important that we need to share our shadows is to first of all, be open to know that we all have shadow sides within us. So the good and the bad. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So for example, if a shadow that you might have is being selfish, a bad thing is that it could cause you to do some things selfishly in front of others, but a good selfish habit, also that shadow, could be propelling you to really take care of yourself and make sure that you are healthy and whole and you're selfish with your time. But the greedy shadow part could be that you're selfish with your money, maybe, and not sharing it. Okay, so we have to just, first of all, share and know that we have shadows and understand what they might mean. And that's where we go to the next level, where then I have H is for hurt. Now, how has this shadow hurt you in the past? Okay, or maybe it's still continuing to hurt you. So let me give the example of the shadow being the shadow, meaning I wanted to avoid conflict. I think it's really hurt me that I haven't taken a truly real honest look at a lot of my weaknesses and building on those. Because once we do, they can become, what's next is our ally, A. So let me give you an example. One of the things that really inspired me was Michael Jordan. And when he was on his high school football team, wrong sport, Janae? When he was on his high school basketball team, he actually got cut. So who's this basketball player, still arguably considered one of the best players who've ever played the game, got cut in high school? And his coach said, you know, you're not very good at free throws. And so had he not shared the shadow and not embraced it and continued to avoid it, it would have continued to hurt him and not become a better player. Instead, he said, okay, I'm going to take this shadow as my ally and make it better. So from then, he made a commitment to practice 500 free throws a day. So amazing, which turned around his game. So with our shadow, how does it hurt you as your ally? And then D, don't do. Now, based on the shadow, what are some things that you don't want to do anymore? So it's important to know, okay, so I don't want to do anymore. For me, I don't want to ignore the shadows in my life. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to figure out how I can embrace them and not let them hurt me by avoiding them and think that they'll just go away. Then I look at O for shadow as opportunity. And it's at that point that I can embrace it and have it become an opportunity in my life. So by embracing my shadows of things that I wanted to avoid and knowing that sales and marketing was one of them, I said, okay, how can I use this as an opportunity? I need to figure out a way to make that my ally and really enjoying it. And I have. I've really feel like I've made a shift to look at sales and marketing in more of a creative endeavor, kind of like I can create a product around the sales and marketing piece, and that's become a great opportunity for me. And that's where W comes from, the way forward. So based on all this, what is the way forward of how you want to interact with your shadow? Because you can either use it to hide from it and pretend it's not there, or you can have fun and integrate it and know it's a part of your life. So your 1, 2, 3, choose what's best for me. Super simple this week. 1 and done is to use this shadow process and reflect on 1 shadow in your life. 2, good for you, do it again. And 3 is key, do it a 3rd time with 3 different shadows, and I think you'll really be enlightened to see what's out there. Now remember that the shadow knows.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The shadow knows.
From my heart to yours, be love.